Okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Adam Zanolini, and I am the executive director of Elastic Arts, and I'm extremely excited to welcome all of you to our inaugural presentation of our brand new series, the AfriClassical Series at Elastic Arts, curated by Julian Terrell Otis, who will be joining us in just a minute. Actually, he's visible on the screen right now. I just wanted to take a moment before we talk to our guests this evening, Decomposed. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Elastic Arts. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization and venue located in Logan Square in Avondale, in the city of Chicago, for all of you tuning in from around the world. And we have been presenting adventurous, creative, non commercial music for over 20 years in our various iterations and locations throughout the city of Chicago. And right now, our space is closed like so many other places, but we are shifting our attention to a virtual existence like very many others, and hoping to continue to support our adventurous creative music performance and art over the Ethernet and the internet and the ether. So the I just want to tell you that the idea for the AfriClassical series came out of conversations that Julian and I had about this time last year. As a matter of fact, we were on tour and riding around in the van, and you know how conversations get into some interesting places when you spend enough time with nothing else to do. And Julian started to tell me about some of his experiences as a musician and vocalist in the classical music space. And they were experiences that I had never had as someone who kind of does my creating in the jazz space. And I was shocked in some ways not really as surprised as someone who is not a person of color might be, about the way that the experience was colored by being a person of African descent. And so I was sort of really struck by that and wondered how many people don't know anything about that. And when the opportunity came up for us to present a kind of a classical music oriented series, those conversations that I had with Julian came to mind, and I thought, well, what if we could make a series that was all about representing the Black experience in classical music, which is something I think a lot of people don't really think about. Obviously, classical music is very, very much associated with Europe. It's often used as to hold up the values and virtues of European culture, and oftentimes the very many strong contributors to that tradition, who are of African descent and other backgrounds, are elided and erased, as in so many other domains within this dominant culture. So I was just hoping that Elastic can use our resources and our platform to tell those stories, to give these amazing artists and composers a platform not only to present their work, but also to talk about their experience, to share their experience with us and with you, and to bring that experience into our space in a very welcoming and loving way that wants to celebrate everything that people have achieved and overcome. So, with that, I think I've spoken quite enough, and I want to turn it over to my brother Julian, who will introduce our guests today, Decomposed.
Hey, thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate that introduction. And I just want to welcome everyone to the Afro-Classical series here at Elastic Arts. Um, I just want to introduce this group, this of musicians who exemplify the mission of the series in so many different ways. When me and Adam were having conversations, and it seemed like when I was on their website, this group exemplified all of those different attributes that we wanted to highlight in the series. So I thought they would be a perfect start to kick off the series. And in their own words, Decomposed is a Chicago-based chamber music experience that honors Black creativity and culture through the music of Black composers. Decomposed, an adverb. Our creative process that involves the breaking down of preconceived notions, barriers, and opinions of what people think classical music should be, to rewriting our own narrative to reflect what the classical world could be. They say we're architects of creativity and merge various artistic mediums to properly honor the legacy and brilliance of Black composers. With our platform, we plan to change an entire field, and we're doing it on our own terms. So now let's hear a little bit of their sound. Let's welcome Decompose, Corey Coleman, Danielle Taylor, Caitlin Edwards, Kyle Dixon, and Tahira Whittington. Hey all, how y'all doing?
We're good.
Oh, thank you.
Good. Hey, I was just wondering if we could just break the ice a little bit. Could you just tell us a little bit about how you all formed as a group and how you hope to make an impact on the music scene?
Yeah, so prior to Decompose, I was actually a blogger where I covered different events and activities throughout Chicago. And one day I attended an event that was highlighting the music of Black composers. So this light bulb kind of went off, and I had this kind of like disturbing realization where I'm like, oh, I've never heard of any Black composers prior to this event. And the reason that was shocking for me is, I used to play the violin and everything. And even throughout my entire time playing the violin, I had never been exposed to Black composers. Mm-hmm. So that night, I decided to go to the internet and I'm like, are there other events covering Black composers? And there weren't. And there weren't any, especially outside of Black History Month. So I figured, okay, I feel like I could kind of create this. So I started on the internet looking for someone who really had a firm grasp on like Black music. So I was looking for Black musicians, and I came across Danielle Taylor, and it was really just a match made in stranger heaven because we didn't know each other at all. So like she really was able to bring the music and the programming aspect, and then we combined my background in marketing and strategy and just like formed these two worlds to create the magic that is Decompose. I think we're showing just like the power of collaboration and the power of being open to new possibilities of what we could actually create within this space.
Yes, and then as far as the impact, I think we want to make it undeniable that Black composers are here, Black composers are being born. Black composers have been here for hundreds of years and have created works of art, works of genius, that in some cases are available to us, and in many cases they are maybe sitting in closets, waiting to be performed, waiting to be celebrated. So our mission is to bring those works to our people first, as considering it as a part of our heritage, just like so many other musics. And then obviously to, different communities, and then also redefining what a composer is. There's ideas that like composers stopped with, Europeans in the 1800s. And so honoring composers as people who are dreaming up and creating music really widens the people who we can consider and celebrate and honor and collaborate with as the composers of this generation and of the future. So I think we are doing as much as we can to make sure that happens.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yo, thank you so much for going through. That's an amazing journey that you guys are continuing to be on. And it seems like can you tell me a little bit more about how maybe your programming has evolved along the way since the beginning?
Sure. I think when we first started out, we were primarily performing the works that have been written, like 20th century, William Grant Still, Florence Price, and really pairing them with living composers, Jesse Montgomery, Carlos Simon. And for every audience that we played for, most of the composers were new. And that's the case with, as we go along. But it's interesting, as we have, repeat or different performances, there are people who recognize, oh, that's Jesse Montgomery. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's pretty amazing. And then as we continued to evolve in our mission and what does it mean to celebrate Black culture and creativity, then we expanded that music repertoire to like the music that's being created right now, gospel, R&B, pop, hip hop, because, music creators, those are all composers too. And so that's been a really interesting and exciting part of our evolution, for sure.
Awesome.
The other thing too that I would add about the programming is the reason we're touching on all these different genres and mediums is it's really about meeting our community where they are. We know just kind of like statistically, classical music is not widely adopted in our community. So if we want more people to come to our events and really feel included in part of that process, it's about hearing that song that you recognize sometimes. So it's like, they're hearing the music of Florence Price and they're like, oh, she's super dope. That sounds cool. And then afterwards, they might be like, what? Did they just play Lizzo? And then that makes them feel more included within that. So it's how we make that connection with our community by making sure we're just meeting them where they are with the music that they're hearing, with the music that's just a part of our culture that they hear in their everyday.
Definitely.
I think that's just so important. I just have to thank you for this work that you're doing, because it's so necessary and it's so beautiful. And what you just said is like, everybody's trying to do that. Everybody's trying to engage with our community with this music, but it's like they're not speaking to them. They're not speaking to the people. And so much of the history and the development of classical music, especially I think recently, has been kind of exclusive. It's that music that only the certain people have access to, certain people can deal with, certain people can afford, certain people are included in that circle. And trying to break out of that history, I just think, it really needs an entirely different model, different way of thinking about what can be classical, what can be serious music, what can be great music. And I'm just so grateful that you're doing this work. I'm sorry I had to interject.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to segue into also the spaces that you guys utilize in order to create your music. Like it's not necessarily a concert hall that you're in. You can be in a community center, you can be in a museum gallery. And I just want to make that segue into the next video where you guys were at the Museum of Contemporary Art in 2019. And you all had a chance to perform in the gallery of this exhibit called Prisoner of Love that was curated by Naomi Beckwith. And I just wanted to say that that little clip, the excerpt that we're about to see, it really does heighten the art to a different level, and it feels like a community that you fostered right on the spot in this very temporary moment. Like a music performance, a concert experience is a temporary moment, and it really seemed on the faces of the people that were even passing by in the gallery that they were impacted by your music. Um, and I just wanted to introduce the next video by saying that it really seemed like a sonic playlist that was in response to two pieces that you'll see. One is Love is the Message is Death, which is a film by Arthur Jaffa, and Bruce Naumann's neon piece called Life, Death, Love, Hate, Pleasure, Pain. So I hope you guys enjoy this next section, and this is Decomposed. Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much for that performance. I just kind of want to get right into some of the questions about it, if you're okay with that. Um, I was wondering, are there any interactions with the curators selecting the works for that concert? And was it a reaction to to experiencing the films and the visual art? If you could talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, so the way that everything was kind of selected is we really pulled from the themes of love is the message is death from Arthur Jafa. And what's really interesting about how this came about is it was really the stars kind of aligned with this project. Like one day I went to Virgil Abloh's party for Figures of Speech at MCA, and then in walks Arthur Jafa. And then I see him and I have to build up all my courage, like, oh my God, that's Arthur Jafa. I need to tell him who I am and what Decompose is doing. So that was primarily like the only interaction we had as far as like the artists, which was a very big one. So really it was just kind of having this conversation around, we really want to bring apart the themes from that work. So a lot of that was really about the Black experience. So you were seeing the joy, you were seeing some of the pain, you were seeing some of our experiences just with like the Black church. So throughout that entire kind of playlist, the music kind of just touches on all of those facets of what it means to kind of just like be in Black life. And yeah, and then even like touching on the work from like Carrie James Marshall, another Chicago artist, and just pulling inspiration from all the artists that were around us.
I would also have to say that it wasn't easy either to come up with a playlist. Prisoner of Love is a very overwhelming and emotional film. I think it's 8 minutes, but to sit there with this large screen and see so much of what sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to express or fully feel, to have it sort of displayed on the screen was really, really moving. And to come up with a playlist that's paired with something so immense, like, oh my gosh, there's so much art, there's so much music, there's so many themes here. And so really trying to have music that tied to that, our experience of witnessing the film, while also doing our mission of introducing and pairing works of past composers and contemporary composers and non-classical composers, was sort of how we were able to have the playlist that we did for that experience. And that required me writing custom arrangements for it, because oftentimes I think the arrangements that are most widely available, I don't think are written by Black people. And I think particularly when we talk about our musical heritage, bass is very important, but so is percussion. And so I tend to write our arrangements so that I can provide that percussive element, so that it feels that much more how we experience music, how we like literally value the musical components of an experience. And so there had to be some of that. There had to be some classical, there had to be some gospel, because hello. So that was my role in facilitating the MCA experience.
It sounds like a band, like literally some parts of the playlist, like you bring like that full spectrum of like a live band sound into the string quartet. And I really appreciate that, because I'm like, oh, they got a bump and rhythm section over here on these songs too, right? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I was wondering, could you talk about the impact the music has on the gallery experience? Like, I guess music always seems to heighten things and brings it to like a grander spectacle. So it really seemed like from the video that it goes from like this spectator sport to much more of a lived experience for everyone involved. I was wondering if y'all could talk about that.
Absolutely. For this collaboration, I think the great thing that happened for us was that we were able to go into the space and experience the exhibit for ourselves days before the performance, so that we could actually experience what our audience would be experiencing, and not just being focused on providing the music, or providing the music for the experience. So we sat down in front of that 8-minute video, and as Danielle said, it is very overwhelming, and I felt heartbroken. I felt joy. I felt disbelief. I felt pride, and all of those emotions jumbled together. The great thing about the exhibit is that there was a space for people who experienced the video could write down whatever they wanted to write immediately after looking at the video, and we did that. We did that as a quartet, and and then we were able to post those thoughts on a wall with other people's experiences, and then look throughout the entire exhibit before our performance days later. And so I feel like our performance was impacted by our actual experiencing of the exhibit, and then we were able to give more to our music, and our musical experience to our audience because of that, being able to really engross ourselves in what these artists were expressing in their works, the messages that they were delivering in their works. And so we were able to really have a collaborative experience because we, could feel, what these artists were emoting. And so decomposed events are very much an interactive experience. We encourage our audiences to interact with us, to exclaim whatever they need to exclaim, and we don't need a moment after we finish playing to have a quiet moment before we have to go to the audience. No, you can come up to us and actually speak to us, and it's great that we can create an environment that's comfortable and safe enough for our audience members to come right up to us and say, hey, wow, what you provided was a perfect coupling, a perfect soundtrack to the gallery experience. And that means so much to us because that is the true meaning of collaboration for us, is that, we are servicing the art is servicing our music.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just quickly jump in and say, I mean, just to talk a little bit about the video that we had a chance to see before we went in and played, just to let those images sort of wash over you, really put us in the mindset to kind of draw these sort of connections between the music that we were playing and the art that was on display. I think that music is something that all of us relate to on a certain way, especially within the Black community. We talk about this all the time, but music is a communal experience in the Black culture, right? And so it elicits a very a visceral reaction, right? And so pairing the music that we were hearing with the images that you were being exposed to kind of places, it kind of puts you in a place. I think it puts people in a more empathetic mind space. I guess it makes the experience more tangible, right? Because we hear about these experiences of our ancestors, people that came before us, and we kind of have it at arm's length, right? It's archival. It's something that happened in the past. It's not it's not tangible. It doesn't make it. It's harder to feel that it's relevant today. So I think that the music helped to put that in that context as well.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Um, Speaking of context, I was wondering if we could change the script a little bit and go from the cold, cold streets of Chicago as Decompose takes us away from it all to the sandy beaches of Montego Bay.
One, two, three, four.
And I could tell y'all like to have fun. That was cool. I was wondering, what is it like to be a member of Decompose?
Decomposed is a beautiful experience. Danielle, because she's laughing. But they're like family to me. We're all family. We joke around, we laugh, we dance, but we also are serious, especially when it comes to intonation. Whew. But yeah, it's a beautiful experience, and it's so great to have a safe place that I can go to be, with my Black brothers and sisters playing this music and just being able to express who I am and not have to leave anything behind, like any of my culture behind. Yeah, I love everybody.
Yeah, it's definitely like making music with your chosen siblings, not the ones that you're just birthed into. Yeah, it feels like we chose each other to create this experience, to create the space where we can. It feels like a community meeting when we come together, because we don't just come to work on the music, we come to work on ourselves. We come with our joys, our fears, our pains. We make space for that, and we make space for getting up and dancing and and laughing and just plain cutting up, and that doesn't take away from our preparing for our concerts. It doesn't take away from it. It actually enhances our music making. It enhances the level, the advanced level and high level of music making that we aspire to present on all of our events and concerts. So yeah.
Speaking of Blackness, so I don't know how many people have watched it, but I definitely watched the Fresh Prince reunion, okay? Like immediately. And there's this point at the end where Tatiana Elise says, some form of Black excellence wasn't like the money, that's all mythical. Black excellence is the way we love each other, or the way we loved each other. And I think that is so much a part of what Decomposed is. I mean, of course it's about the music, and of course it's about pushing ourselves, pushing each other and supporting each other as we develop as people and musicians. But I think the root of why we are still here is the way that we love each other, musically and personally. The fact that, in this space that we are co-creating, somebody might turn on, the Tootsie Roll or whatever song, and there is a communal agreement that everybody's gonna get up and dance. Okay, and if that's not self-love, I don't know what is. And the fact that I mean, I'm gonna speak for myself. I would not have been able to do that in any other chamber or musical classical experience. I would never be able to do it. It wouldn't even be considered. But the fact that we have these agreements about joy and about caring for each other, we never start by playing music. There's at least 30 minutes of how are you? That's not really how you are. What do you need to talk about? That as a part of connecting musically and as a central value. So I think that's what it feels like. It feels like being able to be yourself, to grow into yourself, and to have people witness you and support you along that journey. And I definitely don't take that for granted.
I would add too that I think what's so unique about Decompose is it's really meant to be this, like, echoing what everyone else is saying, the safe space where we could truly be our full selves. I think in the 80 to 90% of our lives, we feel like we have to be something else, whether it's in the corporate world or the predominantly like white classical world. Decompose is the space where we could create what we want, be who we want, work with who we want. It's really about this, like, our dreams becoming reality and creating the world that we wanted it to be, and just doing it together and just being as Black as we want. Like, this is the only space that I could really be like my full self. So I cherish that.
That sounds like joy. That sounds like Black joy to me. That whole experience, that care, it sounds like a healing process too. Not that you're always coming from a place of hurt to heal, but just the condition of being a human being, sharing. Thank you all. Thank you all for sharing that. I was wondering, oh, Adam, I think this is your question. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, that was really edifying and touching to hear about that. And I'm so happy that you're doing that. I had another question when I was watching that video, because you all talked about it a little bit already, but I wanted to ask about part of the group's mission is to sort of expand the definition of what classical is, the way people think about what classical music is, or what kinds of music can be considered great, or helping people to relate to the music. And I wondered, if you could just talk a little bit more about how you're, fulfilling that mission and how that's going and how that feels, and more about that work.
Okay. Well, we touched on it a little bit, but I think the way that we're expanding what classical is, first and foremost, it starts with like making sure we're broadening that definition. So we're taking into account the contributions of all types of Black musicians and artists. So we're doing that. But I think another thing that's incredibly important about our mission is we're not operating within one silo of the classical music world. So we're drawing inspiration from all types of Black creators. So we might create based on like Arthur Jafa, or we might collaborate with like photographers. It's really about broadening our scope to see who else we could bring to like have this seat at the table with us. So it's about building community when we create, and not only working within ourselves. So I think that's how we kind of challenge it, is by showing that we're open, we're collaborators. We want other Black people to be a part of this world and to experience it with us.
And I think most of our events are heightened because of that collaborative aspect, because it's not just a collaboration artistically, it's a collaboration so that we're touching other sensory organs of ourselves and our audience members. You have more of a recollection of what a moment was when most of your senses are, touched. So we try to bring that to our events.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, because I know sometimes, frog in my throat. Sometimes, you can go to an event and you feel very constricted, But then how are you supposed to emotionally relate to what you're experiencing if you are constrained from responding to it and interacting with the people, So I don't know. I just really appreciate that you're recognizing that and addressing that, kind of working to soften the rigidity of the, the expected responses and because music, it's not just the music. It's not just what's on the page or just what's in the ears. It's an entire experience. You go there to be with people. You see them. You share air with them. You feel their vibration. You feel their energy. And that's good. That's okay. That's human. And I think that's so much of what's so important about what that Black experience and our history can contribute really to the other ways, that's okay to allow yourself to be human in that way, to allow that compassion, to allow all of those things to take hold. And so, when I first encountered your music and what you're doing, it was like, yeah, I didn't even know what I was missing before. And so anyway, thank you for commenting on that. I'm giving it back to Julie now. Take it.
Oh no, that was beautiful. I feel like we should listen to some more music right now. Um, Everybody agree? Cool. Up next, we have an excerpt from String Quartet in G Major by Florence Price. Cool. We're back here with Decompose. I just had a quick question about your experiences here in music school. And I was wondering, did you all have a chance to play rep by African American composers like Florence Price in school? And what impact does these representations have on you as a player? And what are the perceptions of audience members that, are introduced to these composers for the very first time?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, go for it.
I can jump in on a piece of that question. The answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
I was not exposed. I did not perform music by Black composers. And I went to Oberlin and Northwestern, where so many Black composers walk through those doors, to go to the same school where, I mean, countless, but like George Walker went to school and not know, like feel alone, like I was part of the first group of Black people that had walked through that door when he did, 50 years before. It wasn't until my junior or senior year, where I found out that Frances Walker Slocum, who was his sister, was a brilliant pianist and was on piano faculty at Oberlin for a long time. I did not know that until I was almost done with school there, and that she was still living in the town, not being celebrated, not, people would always talk about our former faculty staff, never heard her name once, and how devastating that was, for what a loss it was for every student that walked through those doors, but particularly the Black students. Just feeling like, I know that I struggled with feeling a sense of belonging. The same at Northwestern, where Margaret Bonds went to school decades before I was even born. And I feel like it's really theft to rob people of knowing the legacy within the spaces that they're in and the institutions that they are being educated through. And so it's really devastating and unacceptable that, we have historians in every field, you know what I'm saying? And we don't even know the people who went through those institutions. Like, talk about institutional memory. And
Selective.
so very, very selective. And so there's that. And I think there is power in knowing that you're a part of a large legacy, and that you're a part of a large and powerful legacy, and that you are continuing that. I think that, I perhaps would have walked through those halls very differently if I knew that I was continuing a legacy. So that's the part of the question that I will tackle, because I forgot the rest, honestly. Sorry, Julian.
It's all good. It's all good. So, anybody else like to chime in?
Yeah. Growing up, even growing up in music, I wasn't really exposed to Black composers through undergrad. I think in history class, we talked about William Grant Still for like maybe a hot 5 minutes, and then just kept moving on. So this is definitely an issue in the schools, in the history books, everything. And I believe representation is so important. Just like Danielle was saying, if I would have known there was a legacy that I was walking into that was continuing, like, how would that have impacted me? I didn't really perform a work by a Black composer until I came to Chicago. Well, I went to Gateway's music festival before I moved here. So that was a lot of Blackness. It was wonderful. But yeah, it's just not in school. And I think they're trying to do better with that now. A lot of it is performative, but I think things are kind of starting to move. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that thinking back, I remember playing in an orchestral arrangement of Scott Joplin's The Entertainer in middle school. And the only reason I remember that is because it is an isolated event. And I just remember that because he was Black. And we weren't playing other Black composers' music in middle school or even in high school. And it wasn't until I had the opportunity to program my own solo recital at New England Conservatory and at the Juilliard School to be like, wait a minute, no, along with this Beethoven, I'm going to be playing some Noel DaCosta and some Jeffrey Mumford and some Dorothy Redmore. That's what I'm going to do. And, you know, and I'm grateful that I had supportive teachers during those years, but it was on me. It was on my, you know, it was on my onus to present these works. And it wasn't like I felt an obligation to do so. It was for me. Mm-hmm. You know, it was for my enrichment. It was for my spirit to perform these works. So yeah, that's been my experience in school where Black composers are concerned. Black classical composers are concerned, I should say, because I did grow up, you know, knowing about jazz composers, you know, about Black jazz composers, but it just wasn't the same with being educated on Black classical composers. You know, there just wasn't a highlight at all.
Yeah, I remember going through like undergrad and see, I grew up in Detroit and I was a product of the Sphinx organization there. And so, you know, in high school, I was surrounded by a lot of Black and brown string players. We were playing music by William Grant Still a lot. And then I get to college and there's none of this. No one was programming Black composers. There was no William Grant Still even. There wasn't any Florence Price. Everybody, those are the go-tos, right? Everybody, when they want to tokenize Black music, they, oh, we'll just program something by William Grant Still. There wasn't even any of that. And like we were saying earlier, it kind of pushes this narrative that Black folks were not involved. They weren't writing classical music. Maybe they were writing jazz, right? But not classical music, right? It's completely incorrect. But that's the idea that I mean, I got in my growing up, you know, in college at least, that, you know, there weren't Black voices in classical music. You know, they did jazz. There's something different. There's something separate.
I mean, we just listened to Florence Price, and she was an alum of my undergrad, New England Conservatory, and I didn't know that until I started performing with Decomposed, sadly to say. And I could have been walking those 4 years of school knowing about Florence Price, and I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I'm at Northwestern now, and I didn't realize that Margaret Bonds was there until Danielle just announced it like 5 minutes ago. It's crazy.
Yeah.
There it is.
You even talk about electronic music, like electronic avant-garde music, and Ollie Wilson was the head of Oberlin's electronic music program for years. He started it.
He started
it. That's mind-blowing. Totally mind-blowing. And to know that you're not alone because you're standing on the legacy of all of these other people. You might be the only Black person in that whole program, but to know that other people walk through those doors is so important and so missing from, at least it sounds like, from all of our experiences, and something that we should definitely dive into more as Black musicians. I hate to segue off of that, but a change is gonna come. I do declare. hey. But with that, I just wanted to introduce the last piece that we have tonight is a tribute to the protesters this summer that was particularly inspiring to me. This piece is a combination of text and photos set to an arrangement of Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come."
When you talk about a revolution, most people think violence, without realizing that the real content of any kind of revolutionary thrust lies in the principles and the goals that you're striving for, not in the way you reach them. On the other hand, because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that as reactions.
Well, we're back with Decomposed. After that, our final selection. Thank you all very much for that. I just wanted to ask, if you could talk about the process of collaboration in producing that particular piece, selecting the photos, collaborating with Joel on the arrangement, the overall vision for that project. If you could just kind of speak about how that came together.
Yeah, I could start by talking about the photos, but this project was a collaboration with 11 Black photographers throughout the country, and the entire premise is really rooted in providing a platform for Black people to tell their own stories. I think historically, when we think about the history of imagery, imagery could be used to convey stereotypes. It could be used to only focus on like kind of negative perceptions of our community. And I think particularly with the protests, we were starting to see a lot of coverage where people are overemphasizing the looting and the fires burning and everything. So with this project, it was really about focusing on what we thought the protest was about, which is about community, which was about unity. And it was about really just symbolizing how a change is going to come. And we just wanted to provide something that was in stark contrast to what was happening on the news. Like, this is our way of saying, this is what the protests actually symbolize and what it means. And to segue into the musical soundtrack portion of it, it just felt like change is going to come is what made the most sense for this, because we truly believe a change is going to come.
Yes, and for the musical portion, I think to have that song, which is so that defined, an era, to have it told through the talents of a living composer, Joel Thompson, who wrote, for those who are not familiar, the 7 Last Words of the Unarmed, which is probably one of the most incredibly profound and heartbreaking pieces I've ever heard in my life. To have him particularly write that arrangement was really powerful. And the arrangement wasn't written for this actually. It had been in our rep for, I don't know, maybe a year. And so to take something that wasn't written for this, but we couldn't have found or arranged something better to marry sort of the image with the experiences that were being conveyed, as we were all in isolation at that point. We recorded it from our rooms because it wasn't safe at that time, to be together. So I think all of it together was a really moving and all fit together, really all fit together.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you very much for that. I was kind of wondering, speaking of that moment and how you had to respond in isolation, what was that like? What's it like, during this whole last few months, with the mission that you have, with this moment where it's like so ripe for a lot of the work, and then at the same time being so severely restricted and having to kind of come up with creative ways to do your work. Could you talk about what the last few months have been like for this organization responding to these uprisings, and then also obviously dealing with this other current calamity that we're undergoing right now?
Yeah, I think with everything that's going on right now, I think our mission was just kind of reinforced. It also allowed us to have a more intentionality. I think what was interesting about the video, and we kind of made it a point to feature that in the intro, but Nina Simone's quote, it is our duty to reflect the times. So as an organization, we felt like as everything that's happening, not only must we do something, but we have to do it with intention. So it wasn't enough just to put a song out. We were like, what is the actual story that we're trying to convey and what we're trying to tell? And I think now that we're looking at our work and looking at its relevance, it's about trying to think through ways, how can we make what we're doing even more impactful? How can we almost like overthink to figure out what the intention could be and how we want to connect with people? And we even had a project entitled A Time for Healing, which was meant to just provide people a space to heal and leave room for their grief and their emotions. And that video came out right after the Breonna Taylor verdict. So our work is really about responding to what our community needs at that time. And we're not kind of in the business to just crank something out for the sake of cranking it out. It's really about what do people need in our community right now, and we will create work in response to that.
And just talking about the technical aspect of producing work in isolation, you know, it was a learning curve. You know, not all of us had recording equipment at home. You know, I was on tour, and you know, that was taken right under me. And so I didn't have recording equipment, you know, in mid-March. And it took a while to be like, well, am I going to invest in this? You know, I'm going to invest in equipment so that I can continue to work and continue to create content. And a lot of us were in that boat. So we had to figure out ways to make quality professional recordings that would, like Danielle said, actually really marry the storytelling of these photographs and really come to the level of those photographs, because we weren't going to just put out anything willy-nilly. That's not us at all. So we wanted it to come correct. We actually had a release date earlier than it actually came out. But we just decided not to put it out because we wanted the quality factor to be there. As in all of our works, as if we were, you know, performing together. So it was finding the right sound engineer to mesh all of our recordings together, to get the right equipment, and to take that time to listen, you know, to take that time to listen to the community, to listen to what we had recorded, and to see exactly what modifications needed to be made before we released it. And so we are going into all of our projects now, because that was one of the first ones we had to do, where it was such a learning curve because we just weren't in that arena, you know, individually and collectively. So, but now it's actually been an education for us, because now we're approaching all of the work, you know, since then with this, what benchmarks do we want to, you know, hit before we release something, especially since it's going to be it's going to be our message, you know, it's going to be impacting our community in a certain way. It's going to be providing a service to our community. So, yeah, it's important.
I just wanted to say one quick thing, and I think it shows through this video and also all of our works, is that we don't consider ourselves as entertainers, you know, just out here to have, you know, throw something out there, people have a good time, and then forget about it. I at least see us as storytellers, and that is a craft and it's a responsibility. And so with, you know, change is going to come in everything that we do. We are telling stories of our people, and that's a really sacred sort of mission. And we take it very seriously. And so people can email us and be like, when are you going to put out your next thing? When are you going to sort of perform for the audience? And it's like, that's not what we do. We take our time and we see what's happening, and we, you know, we try to understand what the story is first before we carefully and intentionally try to translate it in our own artistic way. So I think that's just really important to say about what Decompose does.
Thank you so much. I was on a call today and somebody said, you know, it's hard enough just playing good music. It's hard enough playing good music without all of these other things you have to figure out, and figure out all of the equipment and make sure, and then worry about being disconnected and the timing and how long it's going to take. And, you know, and then, you know, with all of this other stuff, we are really, really fortunate that we have so many of you dedicated, you know, so dedicated and committed people that are willing to just go so far to do justice to all of those great responsibilities that come with being in this position, and we're just very grateful that you know, can show us the standard of excellence that we can all kind of step up to, and it's really inspiring to hear from you, and you know, not only to hear your work, but to hear from you about your work, and what it really requires to step up in this very, very bizarre time. So thank you very, very much. I'm gonna turn it back to Julian right now.
Hey, thank you so much, Adam. Well, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I just want to say thank you to Decompose, to Corey Coleman, Danielle Taylor, Caitlin Edwards, Kyle Dixon, and Tahira Whittington for their time today. If you are loving this series, expect more to come in the winter and the spring. And please, 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 please donate to Elastic Arts to help programming like this go forward in the future. I just wanted to see if anyone from Decompose has any last words that they would like to say to just wrap up everything.
Well, if you would like to learn more about Decompose, you could go to decompose.com. That's DCOMPOSED.com. We are also on social media on Facebook and Instagram, where you can find us at Decompose Chicago. So follow us for all the latest updates so you can not miss out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.